Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Kyle Mox. I'm Associate Dean for National Scholarships Advisement at Arizona State University and Director of the Office of National Scholarships Advisement. And joining me today is Dr. Mitch Hobbs as well.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Mitch Hobbsa, and I'm the Senior Program Manager of Distinguished Graduate Fellowships.
Well, wonderful. Today's topic, this is the third segment of our exciting series of Fellowships Fridays all throughout February. For those of you that are fans of alliteration, and if you've been here before, you've heard that joke, and I'm sure it's gotten even funnier. We're doing a series of topical workshops that are not necessarily focused on specific awards, but on types of awards or genres of awards, or actually types of students who are looking for certain types of awards. So this is a general overview presentation. One of the things that we will be sharing with you will be handout. I hope that's the right link, not a link to my bank statement or something like that. But this is a handout that we would normally be handing out in person if we were meeting, but it's an overview of a variety of fellowships available for students who are STEM majors or pursuing STEM, further study in STEM. So all the programs that we're going to mention here are outlined there, and so we won't necessarily go into great depth, but that handout does provide further information. So if you're watching this on an archived version of it, of course, you can reach out to us for that overview. We don't publish it on the web, but we hand it out to ASU students who are interested. So without further ado, not knowing exactly where everyone's coming from in their fellowships journey. Some of you, this might be our first meeting. Some of you, I recognize some names and you've been to other presentations, but just to know that when we talk about national scholarships, what we are talking about, what we're talking about is awards external to ASU. So all of the awards that we're mentioning today are not specifically ASU awards. They are not for study at ASU, although many of them can be used for that, and they're not offered just to ASU students. So what that means is you're dealing with a national pool and of thousands in many cases, if not more. That means they're very competitive because, basic economics, there's a very large supply and a very constricted demand. And so that means that selection rates could be very tight. All of these are merit-based in some way, shape, or form. Many of them do consider other factors, but at their basis, they are looking at your merit, and how they determine what counts as merit varies wildly by award, which is why Dr. Hobbs and I have jobs, is to help you interpret what all these different criteria are for all these different awards. All of these awards are mission driven, meaning that somebody somewhere, whether a federal agency or a nonprofit organization or some rich person somewhere decided that they could get more out of their money if they invested it in people rather than just throwing money at the problem. So the National Science Foundation wants to support future generations of scientists in the United States, so they created a program. The Hertz Foundation, the guy that actually did, start the rental car company, thought, with my legacy of all the money I've made in my life, I want to contribute that towards further scientific research, right? So they all have a purpose, and that's important because that helps determine, if you're a good match for a particular award. Because they're competitive, because they're based on merit, these are all extremely prestigious. And in many cases, the prestige is actually what's the most valuable part of the award, meaning that it puts you into a different application pool, for instance, when you are applying for graduate study or a PhD program or something like that. So prestige in this case does not necessarily mean elitism or they're looking just for one type of student, but that name carries with it in merit, because you've earned it and other people have vetted you as being a superior student. So that can be helpful in opening doors. I don't want to generalize about what all fellowships or national scholarships provide, but in some sense, they all provide funding of some kind. Some of it is, relatively small. Some of it is quite generous in the hundreds of thousands. It varies quite a bit. What I tend to think more of the value of these is that they provide access, meaning that you get access to a network, you get access to an alumni community, you get access to mentoring, perhaps you get a better placement in a lab, perhaps you get a slightly more preferential PhD admission than you wanted. It opens doors for you. And in all cases, fellowships tend to support experience in some way, whether that's attending a scholars conference or whether that's actually paying for you to go abroad for several months or again, helping pay for your graduate degree. And of course, training and then that status of being a blank scholar for the rest of your life. You can put that on your LinkedIn profile, you can put it on your resume, you can introduce yourself as a Goldwater scholar at parties and wonder why everyone's not impressed. But it is a status that carries with you because you earned it. So our office, the Office of National Scholarships Advisement, the full name of it is the Lorraine W. Frank Office of National Scholarships Advisement, which I think we can agree is a mouthful, but ONSA, as a lot of people call us, or sometimes redundantly, the ONSA office, we exist to promote national scholarships and fellowships, like exactly what we're doing right now. We are here to share this information with ASU students in hopes that they will apply, because again, we measure our success by whom we include and how we help them succeed. So we're part of ASU's mission in helping our students and alumni succeed. And we're also targeting certain students. So a lot of times you might get an email from our office because you meet certain criteria for an award that we're looking for. So STEM majors above a certain GPA range who are entering senior year might get an email about NSF, for instance. And that means that we're handpicking awards for you that you could be eligible and competitive for. As people decide to apply for things and as we're helping guide them through the process of, okay, which awards are a good fit for me, we actually do provide individual advising to students and alumni as they are applying for these awards. If it's an award that has a nomination process, we also manage that process. And so some of these awards that you'll see do actually require ASU nomination. The majority do not. But if they do, we are the ones who handle that. And we develop a lot of curriculum and programming. Dr. Hobbs and I teach a class on how to write good. And we also have workshops and all kinds of other programming and events that can help you become a better student and a better applicant overall. So just to cover a few basic facts as starting points before we get into specifics. They are competitive, right? And that we say that not as a means of discouragement, but just so you know what you're getting into. And I think a lot of people approach this much in the same way that they might approach a general scholarship search, where you go to scholarships.asu.edu or you go to some other online database and just sort of pick out a dozen things and just kind of shotgun it, right? And just fill out the forms and hope one of them sticks. These are so competitive that we would really discourage that kind of approach. You know, these awards, because there are so few awards offered relative to the size of the applicant pool, these are going to require significant work on your part. It can be challenging, right? We understand that, and that's actually why we're here. And a big part of what we do is to actually just encourage you to persist. But just know that if we are going to mount an NSF application or a Churchill application or a Goldwater application, you are going to put in some work, right? And that's part of what you're going to do as you embark on this journey, because we're going to match the effort that you put in. So if you agree to work hard on this, we will work hard as well. The harder you work, and assuming that you've made good choices in terms of programs that fit your background, your odds of success increase dramatically by the amount of effort that you put in. So it's one of the things I really enjoy about these is that, you know, you can see the results of your labor, right? There is some luck involved, but the majority of it really does come down to the amount of effort you put in. Another fact, you know, we're here to help. I think, you know, we're often baffled that students will just come in for a first meeting, say, okay, thanks for the information, and then we'll never see them again, and then they submit an application. Whereas along the way, they could have been meeting with us and getting feedback on the materials, getting guidance on how to ask for better letters of recommendation, how to, you know, improve their resume, just any aspect of the application process. We're here to help. And there's a whole range of resources. So neither Dr. Hobbs nor myself have a STEM background. Our PhDs are not in STEM fields, but we know how to help you find the help you need, right? We can show you how to be mentorable, how to work with your PIs, how to work with postdocs, how to go to the right people for the right assistance. And one of the things I love about working at ASU is it's intensely collaborative, and oftentimes we have found great success with peer workshops. Students are very willing to help one another. So don't tough it out by yourself. There's no reason to do that. You have a wide range of resources available. And again, I don't want to discourage anyone because, you know, as a matter of fact, we do win quite a few awards. You know, ASU performs quite well among its peer institutions, performs quite well, you know, against other large research universities. Over the past 10 years, we've actually had 3 Rhodes Scholarships and 5 Marshall Scholarships. These are, you know, sort of the more difficult and headline grabbing ones to get. But we've also produced 12 UDAL scholars, which is actually the best in the United States. We're the the top UDAL producing school in the country. 21 Goldwater scholars, which puts us right up there, with Stanford and a lot of our research intensive university peers. I don't have comparative data on DAAD-RISE. This is a German program we'll talk about in a moment. But this last year we had 13 students win that award, and this is up from 2 just a few years ago. 41 Boren scholars and 180 Fulbright recipients, which actually puts us among the top Fulbright producing institutions and PhD granting institutions in the country. So while we are very honest with people on the front end to say, hey, these are very challenging, your odds of success are not great, in reality, compared to a lot of other places, because of the effort that our applicants put in, because of the range of resources and the support of our faculty, and because you actually have, you benefit from the generosity of the university, that we actually have one of the largest and best developed fellowship advising offices in the country, your odds of success are actually quite good. So a lot of times people come and say, yeah, have any ASU students won this recently? And they're always kind of looking for that, am I good enough? There's a lot of imposter syndrome, but in reality, a lot of people are looking at ASU and they're feeling kind of intimidated. So know that you can do this. So best resource you're going to have is our site, onsa.asu.edu. And on this site, you can actually find a scholarship database. That arrow is slightly off. It should be pointing at the scholarship database. Any program that has application instructions or ASU specific nomination requirements you can find those instructions under Apply Now. And then when you're ready to make an appointment, you can actually do that right through our website as well. So this is actually a very resource heavy website, unlike a lot of sites that you might find that just have a phone number or an email address, if you can find the phone number. ASU is pretty good about hiding those. But yeah, you can access all of our archived, presentations on our YouTube page and access our social media. You can even get on our Slack channel and ask us questions in real time. Not a lot of students take advantage of that, but I think they should. So, anyway, that's the tour, and so let's start talking more about the fellowships in particular. So, as you get started on this search, and it is a search, right? You're trying to find a match. You're trying to find the best place to put your effort. First, we want to ask, what's the objective? And that seems like a silly question, but a good number of the students who come in aren't entirely sure. They know that somebody told them they should apply for scholarships, or they know they have some plans. They're not sure what they are, but they know they're going to need some money for it. But we need more of a starting point, right? So if you come in to say, well, I'm looking for money for graduate school, like, okay, we're going to ask a lot of follow-up questions there. If you come in and say, yeah, I'm looking at top tier PhD programs in synthetic biology. Okay, that's more helpful. If you come in and say, yeah, I think I want to do a gap year abroad before I start PhD. Okay, that's a good starting point. So once you know more about what you're actually trying to accomplish, that's more important to us than, say, your major or GPA or something like that. Take stock of what you have. So I've shown you quite a few of the resources we have here. Start making lists, right? Lists are very important in this process. And you'll come in with a list of scholarships, and we'll cross out half of them, and we'll add another 3, and we'll keep making lists until we identify the best ones for you. We will help you through that process, of course. And then very important thing is to make a timeline. It's sad for us when we meet a student like, oh, I found the perfect award. And we're like, I agree, you'd be a great candidate, but the deadline was last week, right? Or the deadline is coming up in 2 weeks, and I don't think that you're going to be able to put together a good effort. So it's incredibly helpful, particularly for those of you that are maybe second year or third year students, to be putting together a timeline for when you actually should be working on some parts. All of these fellowships are going to require significant reflection, and that cannot be rushed, right? It does take some time. So if you were able to grab that handout, again, I'm just going to touch on a few of the awards that are listed on there, and they go into a little better detail. But there are a large number of programs offered from federal agencies. The U.S. government invests a lot of money in supporting aspiring young scientists. One of the big advantages that the United States have is our edge in education and technology, right? That's kind of our brand. So the government does return a lot of this money back to students to support people. So the Department of Defense SMART program, I forget what the acronym actually stands for, but this is a wide range of STEM fields. But you'd be willing to work in some research internships for the Department of Defense. We were just advising a student who progressed to the final interview for that just a couple of weeks ago. The Department of Energy, Department of State, which is an information technology. So if you're a computer science or information technology person, Department of State is looking for you, right? They need some help with this in cybersecurity. NASA, of course, and NIH, Undergraduate Scholarship Program. So you can see it's a really wide range from NASA relevant fields to information technology to, health science related fields, and NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, I think is the last day, Hollings Scholarship. So if you're interested in NOAA relevant issues, particularly like meteorology, that's a great fellowship that's going to put you into a wonderful career path, a lot of internships, great financial support. These aren't necessarily scholarships or fellowships, but we also really urge students to take a look at opportunities available from the national laboratories. They're too numerous to list here. All of these different labs have some different undergraduate fellowship program or summer research program or something like that, right? We could spend all day just going through those. So do take a look at what the different national labs have to offer. Oak Ridge National Lab up in Tennessee actually has a really good database of different national lab opportunities. So take that time to explore, and then students that have had those experiences have come back with really eye-opening experiences, exposure to research at the highest level. They get a good sense of how the United States government funds innovation in various labs. So again, not necessarily a fellowship, but certainly students who are succeeding in these national scholarships and fellowships, that's an experience that they're likely to have had. We also offer a menu of summer STEM opportunities. So these are awards that are obviously just during the summer, they are short-term. We started packaging these awards in this way because we started to recognize that our STEM majors didn't have as easy access to these wonderful summer opportunities that, say, students in the social sciences, humanities, things like that tend to have. And so one of our advisors, Katie Salgado, specializes specifically in summer STEM opportunities. So DAAD-RISE, as I mentioned before, is becoming one of our most popular programs. We had 13 winners last year. We had nearly 100 students apply for it this year. And essentially this places you in a research internship in a laboratory under the supervision of a doctoral student in Germany. So you get to have a study abroad experience. You do not need to have any German language experience, but you also get to advance your research CV, which is wonderful. Another program we've been promoting recently is a new program through Fulbright Canada called the Global Link Midtax. Basically like DAAD-RISE, right? When you apply, they'll offer you a list of available research internships and experiences, and basically you'd be doing that for the summer. So you could be having a global experience in a foreign country, getting you out of your normal circumstances, but then also getting to participate in research. If you're interested in conservation-oriented fields, the Doris Duke Conservation Scholars Program, I would note that's for first and second year students only, but it's a 2-year fellowship, which is unusual. And you actually do research internships at other universities. Research experiences for undergraduates, so the NSFRUs, again, hundreds of those all over the country. Those are summer experiences. And so, again, you're going to be shopping around for a specific opportunity that matches your interest. Another menu I would offer are sort of the more prestigious, and that is to say more competitive undergraduate fellowships. These are awards that carry quite a bit of cachet on your CV. The top award for undergraduate STEM majors in the US is the Goldwater Scholarship. Each university may only nominate 4 students per year for this. And so already, the pathway is quite narrow. ASU, given our large student body and the breadth and range of our undergraduate research experiences, is a very competitive campus. It's more difficult to get nominated than it is to actually win the award. We average about a 50% rate. So out of our 4 applicants, on average, at least 2 win every year. So we usually have between 10 and 20 applicants per year for nomination. So if you're next year going to be entering second or third year and you aspire to a PhD in a STEM field, this would definitely be a great stepping stone. If your background is has conservation or environmental applications, consider the UDAL. Again, that's open to second or third year students. We are just wrapping up the process for that right now, and 2 of our 3 nominees this year are STEM majors. One's doing synthetic biology and the other one does a form of engineering, but really looking at environmental applications. And then the Boren Scholarship, which you might have heard of, you're like, hey, isn't that a language scholarship? But actually, they have a special category award for STEM majors wherein you can do language study during the summer. Ordinarily, they would expect you to be abroad for at least 20 weeks with a preference for 25 weeks or longer. But they recognize that STEM majors can't be away from school for that long. And so they do offer the chance for you to study a critical foreign language over the summer, which, you know, given international collaborations is becoming increasingly relevant. I've had students in aerospace wanting to learn Central Asian languages or Russian because a lot of launches are now happening in the steppes in Central Asia, right? And they want to collaborate with Russian space agencies or other foreign space agencies. Some students have used the opportunity to do language study, but then also do a research experience at a foreign lab. So that's one to put on your list as well. We had a really good computer science major apply a couple of years ago that was really interested in cyber terrorism and wanted to learn Arabic. Yeah. Then we move towards the postgraduate STEM fellowships, and these are the more prestigious ones. And so these are going to be highly selective. Again, the asterisk indicates which ones have a nomination requirement. So the Churchill Scholarship, that is for a one-year master's program in STEM at Cambridge University. And we're invited to nominate no more than 2 students to that per year. And a lot of people ask, you know, why would I want to go do a one-year master's degree? Well, you could add something to your skill set. And we've had a couple of students go and do scientific computing because they wanted to add more quant skills to their background before they move on to their PhD. In other cases, it's just a one-year research degree. So there's a lab or a PI that's doing exactly what you're interested in at Cambridge. And gosh, wouldn't it be nice to add, oh yeah, I did a year of research at Cambridge to your conversation, right? And that can set you up, of course, for higher tier PhD programs after the fact. Chris here, for instance, he was a Goldwater Scholar and then went on to win the Churchill Scholar. And from there, he went on to a PhD at Caltech. He's still at Caltech. And if you have any interest in that, feel free to reach out to me. He's opened the invitation to say, hey, any ASU students that want to know more, just have them reach out to me. The Hertz Foundation Fellowship I mentioned is a very generous award for doctoral degrees in STEM. We actually did have a finalist for that this year as well. That one's pretty limited. I think it's only about a dozen to 20 awards, I think, in that category. And then if your interest is more in the NIH realm, the NIH OxCam program is a wonderful opportunity. You can do either an MD, PhD, or a PhD, but the PhD portion of it would actually be done at Oxford or Cambridge, and it's all done in collaboration with the National Institutes of Health. The cool thing about doing a doctoral degree at Oxford or Cambridge is it can be done in 3 years. In practice, it's usually 4. Because you skip the coursework distribution and go right into a research project. And so it's far more efficient. You can be done with a PhD in 4 years. And if you're an MD, that's wonderful because then you can kind of get on to that pathway. So we've had a couple of students do that in recent years as well. One of our marquee programs, of course, is the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program. I'm actually going to turn it over to Dr. Habza because this is one of the programs that he manages. So Dr. Habza.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mox. Hi, everyone. So the NSF Graduate Research Fellowship is a really exciting competitive fellowship for students in STEM, the social and behavioral sciences, and STEM education. So it basically supports anyone who is doing undergraduates and graduate students who are conducting empirical research in the sciences. Can't be medical research. They do make some exceptions for biomedical engineering and clinical psychology, but if that's your field, come talk to me about that and we'll figure out how you fit in with the exceptions. So it is a 5-year fellowship, so it can span an entire PhD program, but it only provides 3 years of funding. And so the idea of a fellowship is to support your development as a student. And so they want you to be focusing on your research. And so those 3 years of funding can be used so you're not a research assistant doing research that maybe isn't related to your ultimate research goals, or teaching a class, which if you've never taught a class before, that can be kind of distracting from your research sometimes, right? So the idea is that you get 3 years of funding so that you can focus on what you want to do as a researcher in graduate study. And that can be in either your master's program or your PhD program. And you can figure out where those 3 years land. So it doesn't have to be 3 consecutive years. So for example, if you apply in your first year of a PhD program, but you want to reserve one of those years of funding for when you're writing your dissertation, you can save that for your final year. It's really up to you, student, in those 3 years of funding. It is an annual stipend of $37,000, which is a competitive graduate stipend. And the cost of education allowance is $12,000 to the institution, but many institutions like ASU will just waive the entire cost of tuition for NSF-GRFP fellows. So that's something to think about when you're applying to the NSF-GRFP and applying to PhD programs. Sometimes you can find that information online, or you can email someone at the graduate college at the institution to find out more. Unlike some awards like NSEG, which requires you to work for the military once you complete the fellowship, or BORIN, which has a requirement that you work for the federal government, there is no service requirement once you finish the NSF-GRFP. And there also is an additional access to supplemental funding. And it's a very flexible program as far as the funding goes. So if you take a look at it, you'll see that it can support, I think, many students' goals, and it isn't as narrow as the next award that I'm going to talk about, which is the Quad Award. And the main purpose of the NSF-GRFP is to fund students who are going to be the future of science. So they want to find people who are going to make a broader social impact. And so if your research is somehow oriented to improving society, or if you as an individual are doing some kind of outreach to communities or doing some kind of public work with people where you're making a broader impact in your community as a person, as a scientist, even if your research doesn't translate to a broader impact, though that's the kind of applicants that they're looking for. And so we run programming for this where we get as many applicants as we can. We all work together in peer review workshops. And I think we learn a lot about each other's research. And it's a great program to participate in and learn about yourself as a researcher. And undergraduates can apply as many times as they want to. Graduate students can only apply once. So if you're an undergraduate thinking about this award, don't put it off to your graduate program. Go ahead and start applying, because you do get feedback from the readers, and that feedback can be helpful for revising future applications. The next award is the Quad Fellowship. So this one is pretty unique as far as fellowships go. So it is a joint venture between 4 different countries: Australia, India, Japan, and the US. And they accept 100 students a year. And so it will be 25 students from each country. We did have 2 for the first year of Quad this year. One of them is Sammy Hawker, who's fantastic. And it's a one-time award of $50,000. There is additional need-based funding. And the idea is that when fellows start in their 1 year of funding, they'll attend some virtual programming where they get to connect with their cohort. They'll eventually go and attend a core program. So this is a residential experience where you work with other scientists from around the globe. And then there is an additional alumni program where everyone is part of a program where they can network with their own cohort and with future fellows. So last year was the first year of the Quad Fellowship, and this year will be the second year. And I will be having info sessions on both the NSF-GRFP and the Quad Fellowship later in April, which can be found on our website. And so some of the services that I provide for students applying to graduate level fellowships, both undergraduates and graduates, so I work with both students. As long as it's a graduate level fellowship and you're applying to it, I'll work with you. I provide individual advising, so that's meeting with me one-on-one. We can talk about the eligibility requirements, any questions you have. I also organize writing workshops and writing support. So some of these are going to be peer review workshops where everyone comes and works together on their application essays. I also provide writers' rooms where you can just drop in and work on your writing. I know some people find it useful to work while someone else is in the room. We can be a little more focused, a little more productive. So that's a space I provide for students. Oh, I already jumped ahead to the next bullet point. So yes, there is more peer review, and I provide individual review too. So if you just want to meet with me one-on-one to look at your essays, that's also something that I can do with you. And I provide support for individual graduate level awards. And what that means is if you find an award that isn't in this slideshow, maybe not on our website, but it does support graduate study in your field, come talk to me about it. There are so many awards out there that are for graduate students in the sciences, and they are heavily individualized to certain fields or certain research impacts that we can't cover them all. So if you do find something, come talk to me about it, and we can talk about how I can support that application.
Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, it is worth mentioning, I mentioned the database on our website. It currently has between 90 and 100 awards on there, which is barely, the tip of the iceberg in terms of the number and range of different competitive fellowships out there. We try to keep it a feasible number where that we can actually say that yes, these awards that we are relative experts in, and where it doesn't feel like you're just clicking through page after page after page. But there are some databases out there where you can find some very specialized awards. Other graduate programs to consider, and would be the Fulbright U.S. Student Program, which is a wide open award, but basically it's going to fund an academic year abroad. That could include independent research, a self-designed program, or maybe you go research in a lab. I had a student study nuclear reactor design at CERN, another student studying synthetic meat at a lab in the Netherlands, another student capturing fish and measuring them in the Mekong River, right? Anything goes, and that can be for students who are graduating out of undergraduate or for current graduate students, as long as you have a bachelor's degree. If you're interested in Fulbright, we are having our Fulbright advising season starts March 29 with Fulbright Day, and that will be a large information session and panel discussion, and then we'll start doing some boot camps, workshops, and intake advising. The other thing you can use Fulbright for as well as graduate study abroad. And so if you find a master's program at a foreign university that you would be interested in, Fulbright can potentially fund that as well. Cambridge, we mentioned before with the Churchill, but there's also the Gates Cambridge Scholarship, and it is funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I don't know if it's now just the Bill Gates Foundation, but that is for any graduate degree at Cambridge. So that would include any of the STEM fields as well. Knight Hennessy Scholarship, which is a new postgraduate award, relatively new, I guess they're about 5 years now, for Stanford University. So that can be used also for professional school. But it is Stanford, and you still do need to get admitted to Stanford to be eligible to receive that award. But we do provide support for that. Nomination is not required. And Marshall Scholarship, which is 2 to 3 years of funding at any British university. So many students will use that to pursue 2 separate one-year master's degrees. And just to know, in the UK, a master's degree can be done in 1 calendar year because, one, their academic calendar is different. And also the undergraduate students in the UK tend to come out more specialized than American students. So if you're somebody who's already got fairly narrow focus intellectually, academically, you can jump into a more specialized graduate master's program in the UK and do it in 1 calendar year. You can also use Marshall and Rhodes both to fund or begin to fund a doctoral program. Rhodes Scholarship, very, very similar to Marshall, but it's tenable only at Oxford University. And then the Soros Fellowship for New Americans, which is a general graduate professional school funding for any students who are themselves new Americans or for whom their parents were born abroad. So inevitably, the question that we get is, okay, what should I be doing now? What should I be doing next? Well, in general, we can parse out what the different criteria are for these different awards, but I would generalize by saying, make sure that you're pursuing a challenging curriculum, and just about anything that you would do to prepare yourself to be a strong candidate for one of these awards would also make you an excellent candidate for graduate study or graduate programs in these fields as well. So do be sure that you're taking the most difficult option in your particular major. If you want to diversify your skill set, thinking about additional majors, minors, or certificates, making sure that you're involved in undergraduate research. Again, not only is that going to make you competitive for fellowships, but it's also going to set you up for success in graduate admissions. If you were to apply for Goldwater, for instance, with no previous undergraduate research experience, I can guarantee you wouldn't be nominated. Same would go for NSF. There's just not much to talk about in the application if you have not participated in undergraduate research. As you're doing that, you will develop faculty relationships because letters of recommendation are the currency of higher education, right? All of these awards are going to require letters of recommendation. All of them are going to require strong letters of recommendation. I think there's a perception sometimes from students that it's just a tick box, right? As long as I have the letters, I'm good to go. No, I mean, in all reality, these letters of recommendation are a conversation between your faculty members and your PIs and your mentors to another audience who is more than likely people like them, right? They're colleagues talking to colleagues about how qualified you are for this particular opportunity. And their professional reputation stands upon your ability to succeed. So to help them write a strong letter, you do need to start building those relationships. So if you're the sort of person who takes only large lecture classes, takes a lot of I courses, doesn't get involved in research, doesn't pursue opportunities to get to know faculty members, you're going to have difficulty getting those letters. So we encourage you to do that. Professional organizations in your major are an excellent way to get to know the profession, get to know other students, and get to know faculty as well. And we also encourage programs like EPICS, Fury, Changemaker, Luminosity Lab, all these different incubators that we have on campus. A Global Resolve is another really good one. Ways for you to get involved with STEM research, but also apply it, for societal good, which is one of the premises of ASU. If you recall, Dr. Hobbs was pointing out the NSF exists to produce science of societal value, right? And so if you've demonstrated you can already do that, you are setting yourself up for success. And many of these awards, which as you recall, are all mission driven. Ask a lot of questions, right? Do not toil away in darkness. There's no question too simple. There's no question too obvious. No question too big or small. You should be talking to us. And that's exactly what we're paid to do, is to answer every question you have. And, do plan ahead. I mean, you cannot do these at the last minute. You cannot dash off an NSF application in a weekend. We actually expect that you spend several weeks, if not a few months, working on it. So do some reflection, thinking about what your goals are, thinking about what your timeline is. Not everybody's going to go right from undergraduate into PhD, right? Start making those lists, start making notes about eligibility criteria. They are non-negotiable. If it does say US citizens, it's US citizens. If it does say a 3.7, it means that, because these are very competitive. They have no reason to negotiate or waffle. Once you have some idea of what your objectives are, some potential awards that you'd like to pursue, then it's time to start booking intake appointments with us. If you're not entirely sure, you're a first and second year student, you're just at the wide end of this funnel, just book what's called a general undergraduate advising session, and there'll be multiple advisors. Starting in a couple of weeks, our outreach and inclusion manager, Shay Masterson, will be back on duty, and you can meet with her. She's wonderful. She does 45-minute intake sessions. You'll leave with a lot of great ideas. If you're interested in those summer STEM opportunities, Katie Salgado is going to be the person you want to talk to. If you're a current junior or a senior and you're looking at a lot of those postgraduate awards that we talked about, Rhodes, Marshall, things like that, I'm your guy. And then again, NSF GRFP and Quad Fellowship are awards that Dr. Hobbs manages, and he would be the best one to talk to. And as he mentioned, there are information sessions coming up for those as well. So again, booking appointments, onsa.asu.edu. You can also find the schedule of all of our upcoming events and book RSVP for those as well. If you're not on the weekly ONSA bulletin, I strongly suggest you get on there. That way you know what deadlines are coming up, you know what events are coming up. You never have an excuse for saying I didn't know, right? So let me pause there and see if anyone has questions for either myself or Dr. Hobbs. I did see one question in the chat as to whether or not this would be recorded. Yes, it is currently being recorded, so watch what you say. And it will be posted within a week or two on our YouTube page, and we'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone who RSVP'd for this event. So you'll be aware of that. Well, wonderful. We nailed it, got all the information through. So you will have questions if you don't have them right now, right? Because this is intended to be an introduction, an overview of a wide range of different awards. So as you start to explore, we fully expect a lot of questions. And again, that's what we do. We answer questions mainly and help students improve their writing and hopefully win awards to support their goals. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Dr. Hobbs, for joining us. Yeah, good question. When do the GRFP writing workshops start?
We'll be starting those probably, let's see, they started in September of last fall. Like, what year are we in? And I think we might be starting a little bit earlier this year, just to give people a little bit more time. So probably late August, early September is when we'll start those. But if anyone's wanting to start on their application over the summer, I'm willing to meet with them after the info session in spring, and we can plan that out.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Wonderful, great question. So again, thank you all for your time and attention. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend. If you're traveling, be safe and stay healthy. And we look forward to seeing you at one of our upcoming info sessions, one of our workshops, or just in the office working on your application. So thank you all very much.
Have a good day, everyone.